Hello, this is Ellie Dyke, just presenting on how I would teach the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise, aerobic and anaerobic respiration, if we were in a normal classroom setting. So our learning objectives are nice and clear on the first PowerPoint slide there. So the first one, learning objective 1, to understand the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise, nice and straightforward. And number 2, to understand practical examples of when each respiratory system might be used. So aerobic respiratory system or anaerobic respiratory system, and what kind of sporting demands either one of those. So to start off with, we've got a nice clear self-starter here so that the pupils can just come in and crack on, sort of get their heads in the mindset of what we're going to be looking at today. So they can think, pair and share with their shoulder partner, whoever they're sat next to on the table, any ideas or knowledge that they've already got about aerobic or anaerobic exercise. And that's just on the top of the worksheet here that I've created. So self-starter, think, pair and share, just any keywords, little short sentences about what those words might mean or any knowledge that they already have. Okay, so then we'll have a quick discussion about that. So just so I can get like a bit of a like a baseline assessment, so I know who's got some knowledge or maybe who doesn't have any knowledge at all, just so I can gauge how to pitch it as we go through. Okay, so to start off with, we've got aerobic respiration, and what I've done with aerobic and anaerobic is all of our aerobic is in blue. So I'd get them to think of, because we know that aerobic respiration is where we create energy with the use of oxygen. I thought that colouring it in blue would make us think of maybe the sky and the air and oxygen that we breathe in. So blue, aerobic with oxygen. So I've popped the equation for aerobic respiration here. So we've got glucose plus oxygen creates energy. So the oxygen helps break down the glucose to create energy, and carbon dioxide and water. And on their worksheet, they can fill in the equation here. And also they can use pictures, so they could draw for water, maybe if they want to draw a wave or just like a droplet of water or something, because it's quite a long equation. So maybe having some pictures there as well will just help them remember that. So we've got a little extension question here for my higher ability learners. What foods are high in glucose? So they might be familiar with this word glucose, and then just sort of explaining that that's what we get from our food. What foods are high in glucose, and how does glucose help us to do aerobic exercise? So we've got key bullet points here with the keywords highlighted in blue. And these are all bits that they'll fill in on the worksheet as they go through. So we've got aerobic exercise here. What is it? So we're looking for sort of the answer of with oxygen there. Aerobic exercise can be maintained for how long and includes activities such as what. So on our PowerPoint slide, it's all nice and straightforward here. So we want to understand that aerobic is long periods of time at a low intensity. And the easiest way that we're going to remember the difference is to picture it at aerobic, low intensity, long period of time. We got things like marathon running, so long distance. And then anaerobic, we'll compare it with like a 100-meter sprinter, just so they've got two really clear polar opposites so that they know and can help remember which is which. So we've got some examples here, which they can then pop onto their worksheets. And then going forwards, I would like them to have a think about any other sporting examples they can think of. And I've just popped on here where on the worksheet they need to fill it out. So they can either just pop in words or they can draw things. So maybe you've got, might have a rower in the class. They might think, oh yeah, I row for quite a long period of time. They can draw pictures of that. They can use their own sporting experiences to help them with that. And then we move on to anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic exercise. So we've got this in red because red sort of usually means like no or in this case, without. So we've got aerobic, which is with oxygen, and aerobic is where we create energy without the use of oxygen. So I've gone for red, so we think no oxygen for anaerobic respiration. And then same thing, I've just got the little sequence here, the equation, sorry. So glucose gets turned into energy without the use of oxygen, but we also produce something called lactic acid, which we go on to explain in a short while. So again, I've got all the key words highlighted in red. So anaerobic exercise is when energy is needed for the exercise. The energy needed for the exercise is provided without oxygen. And the anaerobic respiratory system supplies oxygen really, really quickly at a high intensity. So we want to be comparing that. Aerobic is low intensity, long period of time. Anaerobic, high intensity, usually really short, quick bursts of exercise. So things like I said, like our 100-meter sprinter, like our throwing events, like javelin or shot put, or even within sports, you've got things like a gymnastics vault, which is over in a number of seconds, but they need that really powerful, quick run up, quick jump, quick vault, stick the landing, and it's over in seconds. So we've got that direct comparison between the marathon runner for our aerobic exercise and our sprinter for our anaerobic exercise. And then the same thing. So I've given them sort of clues. I've tried to make the pictures red as well so that they think anaerobic, red. What were those red pictures that I saw on the slides? And they think of any other sporting examples, and I've given hints within the pictures if they're struggling. So we haven't talked about weightlifting, but they might have other things in their sports that they can think of as well that are like short, quick bursts or things that maybe they've seen on the TV. And then we've just got a quick bit about lactic acid on the top here. So because there's no oxygen available, glucose is still used and it produces energy, but we also get lactic acid. And then in red here, lactic acid is a waste product of anaerobic exercise, which causes fatigue. So just explain about how that causes muscles to tire, and why you wouldn't be able to sprint a marathon. And on the worksheet here, so we've got our anaerobic respiration section, which is in red. So here we're looking for, to finish the sentence, without oxygen, and then when you exercise at high intensity. So I want to just keep instilling that difference between the intensity levels, and we know that it can't supply enough oxygen to the muscles. Then again, they can pop their equation in there if they want to draw pictures too. That's absolutely fine, but I thought maybe not for that one, just because it's a bit shorter, so it should be easier to remember. And then we've got a short sentence about lactic acid. What is lactic acid? And then activities such as what? The most obvious answer that I would expect most of them to choose is 100-meter sprinting. And then they've got the opportunity to think of other exercises or different sports themselves that they can pop in there. Okay, so now we're in a classroom, lockdown's lifted, and we're all allowed to be nice and close to each other. So on this slide here, this is going to be testing their knowledge, sort of what we've already covered. So I've just attached a quick YouTube video, which I would show them. I won't do that now. So just before I show the video, I would ask them to think about what they've learned so far. What are the key differences between aerobic and anaerobic exercise, and any other bits of knowledge that they've got floating around their head. And then we would watch the video. I'd give everybody a post-it note. So on their post-it note, they're going to write down one question about either aerobic exercise, anaerobic exercise, the difference between the two. Completely up to them. They can write their own question. And then they're also going to write the answer on the post-it note as well. Then what they're going to do is find a partner. So they'll look for a classmate. They'll take their post-it note. The partner with the smallest feet, just for argument's sake, will ask the first question. So then they'll take turns to ask the question that they've got on their post-it note and answer it. If their partner is struggling to answer it, then they're allowed to sort of gently nudge them and coach them towards the right answer, but not actually give them the answer. So it's just encouraging them to think for themselves. And also them being the teacher gives them the feeling of being the more knowledgeable other and feeling like they've really got a grip on what it is that they're asking the question about, whether it's the difference between whether it's something that they really know about anaerobic respiration or exercise. Absolutely fantastic. Then once they've taken it in turns and they've both answered the question, they're going to swap post-it notes. So they then get the experience of somebody else's question, and now all of a sudden they're maybe an expert on a slightly new topic. And then we repeat the process. So maybe do that for 5-10 minutes or so, depending on how quickly they go through. And then after that, so we're just going to now apply it to sort of real life situations. So we've got the England rugby team here. So this is just a short video of different drills that they're doing in the run up to the Six Nations. Before I play the video again, I want to ask these key questions. And this is just sort of an individual exercise now, because they should have, they've got the knowledge there on their worksheets, and also they've been discussing with various partners different bits of knowledge that they have got. So this is on their own. And I want them to think about, are the drills mainly aerobic or anaerobic? And once they reach a conclusion, I then want them to think about why, and I want them to give me at least one, preferably more, reasons why it is which one it is. Again, I won't play that video now, but we'll just show that for a minute and a half or so, and then they can get an idea of what the drills are and actually how it's used in training. And they might think, oh, actually, yeah, I've used that in my training. Or maybe they're a coach and they've used that sort of those sorts of drills with maybe their little athletes or something. So then they can start relating it to the demands of different sports. And then we've got an actual practical example of where it happens in a game. So this here is a video of Anthony Watson scoring a try in the Six Nations. And then we've just got a really clear question here. So why, after scoring the try, did Anthony Watson breathe more deeply and rapidly when at rest? And now hopefully they'll have seen that he's done a really, really fast sprint down the field to score that try, and they'll then make that association between fast, high intensity and anaerobic exercise. So then they should be able to make that link between the oxygen not getting to his muscles fast enough because it was anaerobic respiration, so there was no oxygen. So now he needs to breathe more rapidly to get that oxygen into his muscles. So that's the kind of answer that we're looking for. And with that, by this point, I would use directed questioning, because I would hope that my class were fairly confident, just to give everybody that little bit of accountability. So I let them think, pair and share that one, and then direct questioning, just to make them accountable. And if not, if they're really struggling, then they've got the option to phone a friend who could just help them out with the answer a little bit more. And then finally, I've just got some exam style questions here, just nice short ones. So there's a total of eight marks available, sorry. So we've got a nice simple questions, 2 marks here. So explain the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise. They should be able to point out some key differences. One is this, one is that, thinking about oxygen, thinking about intensity, etc. Then we want the equation that summarizes aerobic exercise. Now, hopefully by them drawing pictures of the equation earlier on to help them, that should just help them jog their memory a little bit. What is lactic acid? So here I'm looking for what it is and what does it cause for athletes. Why is it potentially a problem? And then I've got 3 marks for this question. Is the marathon aerobic or anaerobic? And then explain your answer. So which one is it? And at least 2 examples of why they believe it is what it is. And finally, I've got the slide on the end here where they can purple pen of progress it. So if they missed anything, they can add it in, or they can just mark it themselves. And we'll go through that all together as a class, and they can total up their answers at the end. And then I've also got a pupil learning checklist, which I will attach, which then they will tick off either red, amber or green, red being they're not confident at all, green being they're super confident with different various components of aerobic and anaerobic exercise. And Thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation.